Welcome to the Unbearables podcast. I'm Brandon Ruiz, and I'm here with
Phil Wood.
And Jack Cowart.
And today we're going to talk some Bulls basketball. And my first question is to Jack. And basically, who do you want the Bulls to re-sign from this former team? Their options are Noah Vonleh, Zach LaVine, David Nwaba, Antonio Blakeney, Sean Kilpatrick, and Ryan Arcidiacono.
Well, I think it depends on our plan for next season. If we're going to play winning basketball, there are a lot of those guys that we could probably get rid of altogether. Noah Vonleh, Arcidiacono, maybe Sean Kilpatrick. But if we're going to keep tanking, I think Kilpatrick is a good re-sign because we definitely need shooting. I think Vonleh still has more potential to unlock, especially he can just be our third-string power forward behind Lowry, Bobby Portis. I'm totally comfortable with Vonleh as the third power forward. David Nwaba, I think if something happens with our draft and we can't get a worthwhile small forward, he can fill that hole for us for the time being.
Yeah,
and
for just like a year or so.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's Zach LaVine, who I know is a big debate on whether he's worth it.
Yeah, but they have to re-sign Zach LaVine. I don't think they have to, but I know in the Bulls' eyes they have to because they traded for him.
Yeah, definitely. I think if they don't sign LaVine, then that trade was not a waste, but we're losing out on potential there. And I think signing LaVine, maybe not to a very long-term deal, but for a couple of years, I think that's fine because we can see if any of the potential playmakers we get in this draft work out. And if they do and LaVine doesn't pan out, then we're not actually losing that much. So I'm fine with that risk.
Yeah. For me personally, I would probably keep – because I know they're going to resign Zach LaVine, so I'm just going to say that I think they should have resigned Zach LaVine. But I would also resign David Nwaba and Antonio Blakeney. I'm not sure on the other two. I actually do like Noah Vonleh from what I saw from him. He was actually opening up a lot of his offensive game, something that he hasn't really done in the past. And he got something that was very important for the Bulls, and that was rebounds. Not a lot of Bulls players are going – I mean, this is the whole NBA, just in general. Not a lot of players are going down low to get rebounds, but Noah Vonleh actually was doing that for them. Not a whole ton of offensive rebounds, but – he was getting a lot of defensive rebounds.
Yeah.
And regardless, that is a problem with the Bulls basketball. Because if Robin Lopez isn't out there, no one's doing that. So I do think he could be important. So it's a 50-50 on him. I do like Sean Kilpatrick, but I do think there are better free agent options if you want a player like that, which we'll get to in a second. And Ryan Arcidiacono, if you want to keep him, I'm fine because he's going to call for a very small contract, so it's not really going to affect the Bulls. And maybe he could just develop more in the G League. But other than that, I don't really want to see him in his. I don't want to see him in his starting lineup. So,
what are your thoughts on Antonio Blakeney?
I personally think that Antonio Blakeney has a lot of potential. I like seeing what I saw from him. He's a leader, and he's not afraid of the moment. I remember when he waved off. I think Cameron Payne when he wanted the ball in that one game, and then he got fouled from the three-point line and won the game for the Bulls. Now, I wanted the Bulls to lose because I was hoping for a better draft pick, but that was so cool. I was like, dang, this guy's a stud. And I'm watching a lot of his G League stuff. He just knows how to score. And what I would really like to see from him is maybe him develop into some type of point guard. But if not, I do think he can develop. He has the potential to develop in a very good shooter and a very good scorer. So I do really like him going forward with this Bulls team.
My favorite thing about Antonio Blakeney is that he fills up a sixth man spot that the Bulls don't have full. Blakeney and Nwaba, they're very good. And I think they come off the bench and it makes perfect sense. But starting lineup, those two aren't good for that. Maybe Nwaba can play good defense for your starting rotation, but after a certain point, he can't score as well.
Yeah, he has a very good driving ability, but you're right. Outside of that, he's not really that much of a scorer.
Exactly, but him and Blakeney off the bench are really important for your future, I think. I think if you can develop Blakeney to look a little bit like Jamal Crawford even a little bit like a younger Jamal Crawford, and it makes perfect sense for your team because you need scoring off the bench, and then Nwaba can be that defense off the bench, and I think they're like a 1-2 punch that you should keep. And I obviously think you should re-sign LaVine because I think the trade's pointless if you didn't. And obviously we can draft a better player, but I think LaVine can develop into being a really good scorer, and that's what you want him to be. You need he's the scorer to put you over the top because Lauri Markkanen carry your team, and Chris Dunn will play good defense, but you need to score to average a certain amount of points a game just to get you to a certain point, and I think that's exactly what Levine does.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can go.
I think about with the Bulls bench, you were talking about Blakeney and Nwaba as sixth men potentially. I don't want to forget about Bobby Portis, and I think he's what makes the Bulls bench really good. Am I weird for thinking that the Bulls bench is like potential to be a top tier bench?
They could, especially with Antonio Blakeney, David Nwaba, and Bobby Portis, because Robin Lopez is going to start regardless of like how good Bobby Portis is, just because of like Bobby Portis and although they were sometimes, but Bobby Portis and Lauri Markkanen don't really mesh well together on offense. And Lauri Markkanen is like clearly the better offensive player, and they're going to want to develop him because he's probably going to be one of their like premier scorers and premier players going forward. So that's why I think that more often than not, Bobby Portis is going to come off the bench just so Lauri Markkanen can get more developing time. I just feel that the Bulls bench could be really good, especially after this draft, if they draft well. So yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong about that.
I definitely think Bobby Portis should start. I think it makes the most sense in the long run because I don't think Robin Lopez is with you after the season. And if you can develop Bobby Portis to just look like Robin Lopez out on the floor, that's perfect. You want to keep someone like Robin Lopez who's younger. That's the point of Bobby Portis, I think. Robin Lopez was a good signing when we got him. But I think now that he's aging, you need someone like him to continue on your team. I think they built their team around having him playing better defense. And he plays okay defense, but Bobby Portis is the better defender, in my opinion. And I think if you play Bobby at the 5, you have a versatile defender down there who can shoot better than Lopez can. And then you have Lauri Markkanen dropping 24 points a game, and I think they're a good 4-5 combo.
Well, Lopez is shooting, while he doesn't have a 3-point game, he does have a very actually nice mid-range game. But it looks like he shouldn't go in, but it goes in. So I mean, if it goes in, it goes in. That's all that matters. But for me, I feel like a person like Robin Lopez is actually going to age well because of how he plays the game. He hustles and he plays like kind of like back to the basket type of style, and like he's there for the rebounds. And while Bobby Portis could probably rebound more, and he has shown it, he doesn't do it all the time. And so I feel like for this team, for the way I like going back to the last episode, I wanted the Bulls to either draft Michael Porter Jr. if they can, in my ideal draft, and Chandler Hutchinson. If that happens, then I think that Robin Lopez for this team would actually be kind of good at that 5 spot, just because like they have a lot of scorers and they need a for sure rebounder, kind of like how the Warriors do with the Zaza and a JaVale and even Draymond to a certain extent. So I feel like if that happens, then for that lineup it's really good. And partially also, I think that Bobby Portis is better coming off the bench because he helps with their scoring a lot more. Definitely. And that's very important. Like that's like how Manu for a long time would come off the bench for the Spurs, and I'm not saying that Bobby Portis is Manu at all. I'm just saying that you need that type of scoring coming off the bench. And if a player is willing to take that, like, I guess, sacrifice, if that's how you want to look at it, then I think they need to do that for the team's success ultimately, because I don't think after this draft, I would love a tank, but I don't know if the Bulls can, because the reason why we tanked well last season was because of all of the injuries, like how Chris Dunn had the concussion and he fell on his face on the.
He broke the floor.
Yeah, he literally did chip the floor. I wrote a story on that, but my thing is like, and we had Zach LaVine still out for a pretty decent amount of time, and I think with these new additions for draft picks, if they're good, it's going to be very hard to tell these young kids, hey, lose.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very hard for these people who are trying to get a good contract like Chris Dunn, because he's going to be on his he has one more year with the Bulls and there's a team option, but you want to look the best you can so you get paid. So if that's why it's always so hard to get players to believe in the tanking system, because if they're not getting paid already, then they're going to be like, well, what if you guys don't even resign me? Then I'm going to be screwed going forward, because everyone's going to think that I'm just this like 6 and 2 and 3 player, like, and I can play way better than that. So that's what I'm a little concerned with.
I think the Bulls, if they spend time with their 3 stars on the floor, the 3 guys, Dunn, Levine, and Markkanen, if they get a lot of time on the floor, because they got like almost none last season. Like when Levine came back, they played like 2 games together, and then Dunn was hurt. And then Markkanen was out for a while when Dunn got back.
Yeah. Also,
They didn't get to play together at all. And I think if they play well together, there's no point in trying to tank because they're going to win a lot of games. And they could this is a long shot, but if they play well together, they can make the playoffs.
I think it's not the long shot for them to make the playoffs, but I also think last season was an anomaly. Like, you're not going to have that much inconsistency with, like, injuries and, like, how Lowry had to leave because his, I think, like, his girlfriend or his wife was giving birth and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And there were complications like that. Like, that's not going to happen all the time. So, especially next season when they have even more options, I don't think that you can really count on this inconsistency with the Bulls. But going forward, are there any players that you would like to see the Bulls get in free agency?
So, first off, I love Michael Beasley, and I think he makes the most sense because he can score, but his attitude, like you were saying earlier while we were talking, his attitude is horrible, and I think he's kind of bad in the locker room. I'm trying to think. There's a few big guys, like Greg Monroe, I think would play good defense down low, and I don't think he'd be bad because he can facilitate by getting the ball and dishing it back out like a lot of good centers used to do. And I think with the way our team can shoot next year, with Laurie and whoever they draft,
we're going to need someone to rebound.
Exactly.
We're going to.
But we already have Lopez and Portis under contract, so unless we're like trying to get a big, I don't see them signing a big. I think we need more scoring off the bench. Like Fred VanVleet, I said earlier, was a good guy, and he only averaged like 8.6 points a game, but I don't think that's that horrible. And I think with a bigger role on a bad team, he would have scored a lot more points. And now, like, it would be a good team at some point this season. I think they would go on a stretch. But if you want a starting small forward who's just trying to, like, play games and score enough points to help you get the win, Rudy Gay is one of the most underrated free agents this season. I think he's good at defense. He's good at running the floor. I think he's slowed down a bit in the past 2 seasons. Because he went from the Kings to the Spurs, and the Spurs played a lot slower style basketball than he was used to. I think he kind of got out of shape, and I don't think he was really fit to what they needed. But I think if
he is getting older, too.
He's getting older, but he's a good veteran presence, and you have to think about that on really young teams. Like Robin Lopez is a good veteran presence, but he gets into fights in the court like every season. Like you can't. That's a bad example.
Yo, but they love him.
They love him. They love him.
I love him too.
Yeah,
but he's a bad example. So you need a good veteran example, and Rudy Gay is that.
I think Rudy Gay could be a good example, and I think he probably does. He doesn't hurt any of your chances to get any rookies, and he probably isn't going to demand a super high contract. So that's what's most important, because like if you can get him on a short term contract, but pay him decently well, then that's fine. But if he wants to get paid, like actually get paid, which he shouldn't because his play did not show that. But players get paid. Even like look at Joakim Noah. He got paid one of the worst contracts ever, but he got like a $70 million contract, and he didn't even really play. So if he just wants like a decent contract, then yeah, I think it would be cool because he would help the players develop just going forward. I agree with that, but I also like Seth Curry going forward. If you're not going to resign Sean Kilpatrick, then I think Seth Curry is a better option because he's a better 3-point shooter. He shoots like 40. I think he shot like 43% last season, and he didn't get to play last season because he was injured. And so I think with that, you can get a very good deal for him. And he is actually a very good player. He just flies under the radar because he lives under his brother's shadow, but he can be very good for this Bulls team. Where sometimes, I'm tired of seeing Jerry and Grant. I'm tired of seeing some of these players. I want to see some players that actually have a ceiling, like they have a higher ceiling where they can get somewhere. And I think like players like Blakeney, Nwaba, Seth Curry, they can all get somewhere. Jerry and Grant, you know what he is. He is what he is right now.
A bad basketball player?
I don't want to go out for anybody, but I'm not going to say I disagree.
But if you're talking about a higher ceiling and someone who's underperformed so far but has a chance to overperform on the right team, Dante Exum would be a great signing. I think Dante Exum is a very young player who plays good defense and he shoots well from outside. And I think he has a lot of room to grow. And I don't think, because he was injured for a few seasons in Utah, and it was kind of like piddle paddle because he didn't get a chance to show what he could really do, and he was under Gordon Hayward's shadow, and all of a sudden, Donovan Mitchell shows up, and he's like, "Oh, this is supposed to be my season." He didn't get a chance to show out yet, and that means he's not going to get paid. He's going to get a smaller contract, and I think it makes some sense because he has a really high ceiling, and I think he can become a good player, not a great player. Like he could start on a championship team.
He could start.
He could start. He couldn't be the main piece. Say he's the Zaza situation, but at a different position.
I gotcha. I think he'd be more of a backup point guard for us, which is actually just what we need because our point guard situation right now, if we don't draft Trae Young, is we have Chris Dunn, and then our backups are Jerian Grant, who's not a part of our future, and Cam Payne.
He better not be.
Yeah, I know.
I swear to God, if they re-sign him for 10 years,
10 years?
A ridiculous contract. They're just like, I love this kid. Let's keep him forever until he retires, both for life. That would make me so sad because he is not a good basketball player at all.
Cam
he
Payne
turns
got
the
a
ball
lot better.
he turns the ball over so much. Both of them do.
Cam Payne actually did get a lot better throughout the season. If you actually watched it, he's not a scorer. I don't like Cam Payne, but he actually did pass the ball. It was okay. It was good enough.
It was better than Cam Payne's reputation.
Yes, that's what I mean. It was a very low bar. I will say that. But
I think Cam Payne had a high reputation, and then he came to the Bulls. It was like, why is he playing 5 minutes a game? Oh, because he sucks. And I think when he played with Westbrook, he played off in the system correctly, so he was able to look better. And that's why
that much.
He didn't play a lot, but he played more than he did with the Bulls. And I think if his outside shot improves, he could be a valuable guy off the bench. He can't be much more.
Yeah, I don't think he can be much more, and that's my thing. Get rid of the players who have no potential. Not no, but you need players who have very high potential, and Cam Payne is not that guy.
Yeah, I think Cam Payne is third string potential, and if he stays on as third string, I'm fine, and buy to Jerian Grant. And if we can manage to sign Exum or Seth Curry, those are perfect backup point guards for us, I feel.
And Chris Dunn being the starter he's not going to score a lot from the point guard position. So having a better backup scoring point guard, such as Seth Curry or Dante Exum, is the perfect situation for the Bulls.
Well, Chris Dunn, what I like about him is he's very good at getting his teammates involved, and he's a leader. And I know, Zeke was on the last show, he doesn't see that much going forward with Chris Dunn. He did say he thinks he's going to be a good player, but this is his first full year of basketball in the NBA, and he did play pretty well. And I think he's the type of player where you watched him, he got better throughout the season. As it went on, he was getting better and better and better. So I think that when you look at Chris Dunn, he has a very high ceiling, and I'm not ready to just give up on him. I think it's good that the Bulls have 2 more seasons. He has one more year and then the player option. But if they want to look at other point guards, because it's always good to have depth.
Yeah.
The thing about Chris Dunn is if his outside shot improves, he's our point guard for the future, 100%.
It improved during the season.
It improved, but it's still what did he shoot 30% last year? It was not a good statistic.
I'm not sure.
His shooting stat was bad.
Chris Dunn shot 32% from 3.
That's bad.
It's not. I mean,
it's not. It's above.
It's a work in progress.
Right.
I'm gonna say that
if he can get up to 36 to 38%. I have no problem with him being our point guard for the future. If he can score more points and shoot better from 3, I have no problems with him at all.
I just feel a lot of the times we get kind of with these young players, we want them to be these great players right off the bat. We need to realize that they are very young, and that playing in the NBA is very difficult, any professional sport. But especially when you're going head to head all the time against people. And I feel a player though, like Chris Dunn, if you watch him play, he got better almost, it seemed, every single game. There was always something that I was like, oh man, you're doing a good job. I like this kid. But we get too ahead of ourselves. So I wouldn't be upset if the Bulls committed to him, but I do think there are definitely going to be better options. It's just if the Bulls commit to him, they better have a lot of better scoring options around him, because he needs that.
Just think about this. Dante Exum has been in the league longer than Chris Dunn, and Chris Dunn's 2 years older than Dante Exum. And Chris Dunn, people are saying he's young, but he's not as young as any of these other young guys. Like, he has the potential, but he's getting to the point where his prime is in 2 years. 26 to 29 is like the average NBA prime. And he's getting to his prime in 2 years, and if his prime is 12 points and 6 assists, that's like,
You can't say that that's it, that it's going to stay like that, though, because, like, this is his first season. Like, that's what I mean. Like, he's still getting experience. Like, just look at Lonzo. Like, his first season, he played well, like, getting rebounds, assists, but his shooting was bad. But do you think Lonzo's not going to get any better as a player?
Lonzo's 19 years old.
I know the age, but it does matter when you start playing.
But Chris Dunn played a full season the year before. The year before he played a full season. And the year before that he didn't, but he got a full year of NBA experience playing with a guy like Ricky Rubio over him. And they tried to start Chris Dunn a lot, and it just didn't work out. It just didn't. Because he probably didn't fit into the system, but he wasn't a good basketball player then. And I think he's gotten to a point where he's progressed since then, but I don't think he's going to be what everyone wants him to be. I want him to be good.
Most point guards don't really fit in Tom Thibodeau's system, though.
But his first full
Derrick
season
Rose.
wasn't Tom Thibodeau, was it? His first full season playing, I believe, was right before Tom Thibodeau.
I don't
Last
know.
year?
I don't think so.
It was last year?
Yeah, he's only been in the league 2
Okay.
years. He didn't play that much either this first year.
He spent 4 years in college, and guys like that are hit or miss. Like Buddy Hield is a bad basketball player right now. I don't like Buddy Hield, and guys who spend 4 years in college are really hard to, well, I can't find the word I'm looking for. Develop because they spent so much time in their system, in that college system, that the NBA systems are so much different.
It depends on the player, though, because I feel like Jalen Brunson from Villanova is going to be a very good player. Like so, I mean, it does depend on the players, and I will say that, but I don't know. Are you ready to give up on Chris Dunn, or what's going on?
I'm not ready to give up. Let me give you some numbers, Phil. His season with the Timberwolves, he played only 200 fewer minutes than he did this season with the Bulls. He was just playing a lot less per game, and he obviously missed some games this year. And he definitely developed and improved because all of his shooting percentages are way up, and he's per 36 assist numbers are up as well. So I think just across those 2 years, he showed significant improvement. If he improves that much again next year, maybe one more year, he doesn't have to become an all-time great point guard. I'm fine with that. If he becomes like a top 12 point guard in the NBA, that's all we need, I think.
He also had a lesser role on that team too.
Definitely.
Because in the role of young guys on that Timberwolves team, there was 2 guys who were drafted number 1. And he was drafted, what was he drafted at? Like 13, I think was his pick. And
sure.
the point of him was to be their point guard of the future, and he just wasn't able to do that.
Well, he didn't get a chance. When you get only 17 minutes a game.
But 17 minutes a game is more than you should need to be able to show at least a little bit of decent basketball. He played all right basketball. He could have been a lot better than what he was in Minnesota.
And then we give him even more opportunity this year, and he did prove that.
Right, he proved he was a good basketball player. And I think... I doubt he can continue to improve past this, and I think he's a good second point guard on an NBA team, like an NBA championship roster. I don't think he starts for you in the very, very long run. Like, I think you keep him, but I don't think he starts after a certain point.
So in the long run, what do you want the Bulls to do at point guard? Do you want to go after a big free agent? Do you want to draft Trae Young? Do you want to develop a campaign? Not a campaign, but what do you want to do?
Well, I see them... signing somebody. I don't see them drafting a point guard within the next few years because there's all right point guards, but if they wanted to draft a point guard, they would have definitely traded up last year and tried to draft a point guard, I think. And I think that they're going to sign somebody because there's a few younger point guards that go into free agency within the next few years, and I think those are good options. And I think they draft small forward and center before they go for point guard. And positions don't matter as much in today's NBA. But their point guard spot will be empty for a few years. I have no problem signing an older, good point guard to run with this young team. Like, I just saw Kemba Walker on the TV right now. Like, he'll be, 29 when he goes into free agency, I believe. He's not a bad option at all.
I just wanted to say this, though, about, the whole, because what you're saying on Chris Dunn is, they didn't want him because they couldn't run their system with the Timberwolves. But at the same time, it's they didn't give him a chance. And so, wait, no, I'm just going to show you this right now. So, Steve Nash, first 4 years in the NBA, averaged 3.3 points, 9.1 points, 7.9 points, 8.6 points. Now, that's 4 years it took Steve Nash to actually get a chance, first off. After the fifth year, he started playing. When his fifth year happened, he started playing pretty well. Now, same position. It just sometimes takes the chance and the right system, and I just feel and it does take time to develop. So, going off of that, though, I do think I'm not the biggest Chris Dunn fan. I did say last time I wouldn't be upset if the Bulls drafted Trae Young. I'm not sure about him, but I wouldn't be upset because you still have Chris Dunn for 2 more years, first of all, and you could get another good player with the 22nd pick. But I'm just saying, it's not that I feel it's not that they traded him because he wasn't going to work for them. It's they traded him because they really wanted Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
That was the reason. Because Thibodeau loves, or Thibodeau, I don't know the right way to say it. Everyone says it differently. Wanted Jimmy Butler that bad. And, hey, it worked out for both teams. It might work out better for us because it looks like in the Timberwolves system, they don't know how to play together. But it looks like Chris Dunn knows how to make players at least play together. That's what it looked like with the Bulls. And, he did it with not the best options around him. And so that's kind of my point going forward.
For the past few seasons, I hated on Fred Hoiberg so much. I hated him because I was the biggest Tom Thibodeau fan when he was here. I hated Fred Hoiberg so much, but he is going to be one of the best coaches in the NBA within the next 3 years. The way he's able to make this team look better, the team ran his offense successfully.
They did,
and I think they would have gotten farther if Jimmy Butler had chosen to listen to Fred Hoiberg, and they didn't have to go Hoiberg or Butler.
Yeah, because Jimmy always needs to have his Jimmy time.
And Hoiberg was willing to give him some Jimmy time, just not as much as Jimmy wanted. And I think with the way Hoiberg was, the way he's able to run his system now, his team looks so much better than it would have if he was running a different type of offense. He took the way his team was and implemented that offense, and all of a sudden they were one of the better teams at a certain point in the season. If they had been together the whole season, I think the Bulls could have made the playoffs this year. Yeah. They could have made the playoffs this year if they were together the whole season.
If everyone was healthy, I think it's a pretty good, reasonable assumption to say that.
Especially in the East. Don't get me wrong, the Eastern Conference is kind of booty.
I think calling Hoiberg, I think saying he has the potential to be one of the best coaches might be a little bit of a stretch, but you're right. He's definitely better than we gave him credit for. And a big reason his system looks so much better this year is because of our shooting, actually, which I know wasn't amazing, but it was better than what the guys we had were doing. Specifically, Chris Dunn. I know we were almost finished with Chris Dunn, but I just want to get back to him for a second. I think Hoiberg's system, like Brandon was talking about with guys needing time to develop, he's already shown that improvement. Hoiberg's system has improved his shooting by a long shot, so I am not ready to put my eggs in a different basket than Chris Dunn.
I don't want to move on.
Draft a Trae Young. I think we give Chris Dunn the remainder of his contract, see if he's the point guard of the future that I think he is.
I don't want to move on at all. I think he's a great basketball player.
He's a leader.
He's a leader on this team, a team that needs it. But I think if he continues at this pace, the same stats kind of stays the same player, I think then you move him to a number 2 option and you sign somebody else. But as of right now, he's a perfect number 1 point guard option. I think he fits the team really well.
Agreed.
Leadership-wise, passing-wise, if he can make his turnovers go down a bit, that makes my life a lot better. But I think it's just fine with him right now.
A big
being their
part
point
of
guard.
his turnovers, though, was that if you look at this Bulls team, he had to make a lot of something out of nothing a lot of times. And also, if you want to look at this too, he was averaging 2 steals a game, though. So he was making up for it to an extent. Now, I'm not saying that you can if you have a ton of turnovers, it's okay if you match it with steals. I'm not saying that, but it does show that he cares on both sides of the court. And when you look at this Bulls team, a lot of times in the beginning, he didn't really have a ton of help. He had to kind of take over in a game. And sometimes he actually did a pretty good job at that. And that's something admirable, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of players can't do that. But he showed that he can at least do something. And he can run the system Hoiberg wants him to run. And I like that about him.
I think he's their best defender on the floor. Like, from the perimeter, he's their best defender.
Agreed.
And I think playing like that means a lot to this team. I think if you can keep him on as a bench defender in the future, if that's all he can become, there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Okay, but what about that Cavs-Celtics series?
Oh, God, I love watching this series so much, but I was so let down by the fourth quarter of Game 7.
They should have got Jaylen Brown some more touches.
They should have gotten him more touches, and Terry Rozier was awful, god-awful that game. He shot 0 for 10 from 3, 14% from the field total. It was horrendous.
For some reason, they also kept on giving Marcus Morris the ball, and it was coming close to the end of the game. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, I love Marcus Morris, but, like, he's not your number one scoring option. You got to get the ball to either him, like either Jaylen Brown or Al Horford. Like, those are the people you need to try to stimulate your offense. Now, I know Jason Tatum had a really good game. That first quarter, that was all Jason Tatum.
Tatum had a rough night overall, though, I think.
I don't think he did.
No,
he was the best player on the
I think he
Celtics
got
by far.
frustrated.
He did get frustrated.
He had 5 fouls at the beginning, around the beginning of the fourth quarter, and he looked frustrated for the rest of the game. And every time he got a touch, he couldn't score after that. After he got his 5th foul, he was disgruntled, and he couldn't play well. And I think it was the downfall of that Celtics team.
But despite all that, he was still the best shooter on the Celtics. If we're calling what the Celtics did a failure, it's not on Tatum. It's on everybody else because everybody shot close to the same amount of field goals, actually. Tatum scored the most, but you're right. He did get flustered. He had 5 turnovers, fouled out. It wasn't great, but I wouldn't put any of it on Tatum.
I think he did get frustrated, but I do think that's because his teammates around him, that's going to be like a growing thing for Jason Tatum. I mean, he is still a rookie, even though he definitely was not playing like a rookie. So basically, like, he was playing really, really well. He was making moves, like making these nice step back shots. Like, he dunked. Well, he didn't dunk on LeBron. He dunked like next to LeBron.
He dunked on LeBron. It was body contact.
It was close. Yeah, it was like, I know it was a pretty close dunk, but I mean, like, he played really well, and I could see how that was a little frustrating for him because he's like, what more can I do? And obviously there is more that he can do because if you look at across the court and you're looking at LeBron James, you know, he was doing more.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre to be talking about Tatum's teammates not stepping up when on the other side you have LeBron and LeBron's teammates who are pretty much known at this point for not stepping up.
But are you going to say that Jason Tatum and LeBron James are going to be the same player?
Not even close.
Right, exactly.
I'm saying
is
that's
an
why it's so
anomaly.
impressive that Tatum did as well as he did.
Right. Tatum was able to basically carry this team after a certain extent because he's the best player on that Celtics team right now, like not including Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward. And I'm confused at where players are going to play next season on this team because there's so many good basketball players. But I think Tatum stepped up and showed that he is going to be the biggest piece in the Celtics going on after this season.
Aside from Kyrie.
Aside from Kyrie. But I think it's going to be like 1A and 1B, him, Kyrie, and Gordon Hayward. I mean, it's insane.
It will maybe like
The
4
team is
years.
so stacked.
We're gonna have to see like three or 4 years down the line when Jason Tatum gets stronger, because only then that's when he'll become elite, because he does still get muscled by other players, and that's something that's not going to change unless he really hits the weight room and also get that like maturity weight. Like, he's going to get stronger as he gets older. Right now,
I think
he's still very
has
young.
I think he still has another little bit of growth in him, size wise, like height wise. And don't say I'm comparing him to Kevin Durant. I'm not. But I'm saying their body types are very similar right at this moment. And I think if he was able to make his handle a little better, he doesn't have to hit the weight room because he can just play like that. He can shoot well enough, and I think if he gets a little taller and lankier, I think it's perfect, and his handle gets better, and he's elite in a different way because he'll be a top 5 scorer in the league. I think he's going to average upwards of 20 points next year, even with how crowded that Celtics scoring team is.
The difference is, though, with Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum is that Kevin Durant has a better frame No. Jason Tatum has a better frame than Kevin Durant. So he could actually add to that whole new aspect of his game with the post. That's what I'm saying. Like, where he can have post moves and stuff. And Kevin Durant, he obviously has some, but I think Jason Tatum will actually be able to add that to his arsenal, where Kevin Durant's like, his frame just isn't built for that. But at the same time, I don't think that Jason Tatum's ever going to be Kevin Durant. Like, ever be as good as him.
I think Jason Tatum's going to be more of a Paul Pierce than a Kevin Durant, and that's the biggest comparison, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. He's a stone-cold killer. He makes other teams look sad a lot of the time. Like, the other series in this playoffs, he was so good. And you can't be like, oh, Scary Terry. Yeah, Jason Tatum was still dropping 20 points every other game.
Yeah, no, he was very good.
Yeah, he got 1 point away from tying Kareem's rookie scoring record in the playoffs. He's not Kareem. Kareem did it in far less games, but 1 point away from the rookie record of playoff scoring.
And honestly, if his team had stepped up, he would have beaten that record by a lot because he would have been in the NBA Finals. Like, what guy can say they carried a team in their rookie season to the NBA Finals besides Magic Johnson? Because let's not say that. Because he did do that. What other guy besides those two would have been able to say that?
I wouldn't call it a carry job because his cast was still amazing.
His cast was amazing, but
The
he was the
Celtics
best
team-
player by far on that team this playoffs.
It depends how you look at it, because Al Horford did have a very big role in this team. He kind of held them together in a lot of senses, especially with like that first game with the Cavs. It's just like, I think, wasn't he like scoring a lot of 3-pointers? And he was guarding LeBron pretty well in those first games.
It wasn't Al Horford who was guarding LeBron well. That was the Morris twin. I forget which one it is.
Marcus Morris did guard him well, but I remember seeing Al Horford guarding LeBron well.
I think Al Horford had a few good possessions defending him, but I don't think it was like overwhelmingly. And he did score really well those first two games. And those were his best 2 games of the playoffs so far, or not even so far. His best 2 games of the playoffs. But I think at this point now you can see that Tatum was handling a scoring load that no rookie really has to carry. No other rookie really had to do that. Him and Donovan Mitchell are the 2 rookies that are like carrying the load scoring, and they're good at it. But Jason Tatum was able to take his team from, instead of the second round, to the second to last round of the playoffs, and he possibly could have made the finals if his team as a whole had stepped up in that Game 7.
Yeah, but it is kind of hard to step up when you have, step up enough. Maybe it would even be a leap for, trying to stop LeBron James. And they did a good job playing against LeBron James in some respects. I think a lot of the reason why they lost is because they weren't playing Celtic basketball anymore. Those first 2 games, they were passing the ball so well. They were making shots. Everything was going really well. They were playing really, really tough defense. And then after adversity started to kick in, it just seemed like that was it. Like they would give up at times. And they did play very hard. But there were moments, crucial moments in the game where they gave up. Especially yesterday when George Hill had that breakaway point in the fourth quarter when LeBron passed it to him. And it's like, why was nobody...
That was a beautiful pass, though. That was a dime.
That was a good pass, but there was no reason. There was plenty of time. There was no reason for there not to be any Celtic on the other side of the court.
There was one Celtic, and he tried to block the shot, and he
I think
didn't.
It was Al Horford, but he wasn't close enough. He was the furthest one back. He's also, I think, probably the oldest one that was on the court at that time. So, there are problems. But that's what happens when you play LeBron James. He makes you think sometimes, there's no hope.
Speaking of LeBron James, I think we should talk about the other side real quick. Jeff Green had his best game of the playoffs so far, and it was he was phenomenal in this game. Mm-hmm. And LeBron James just did the craziest thing ever. He played 48 minutes in 3 straight games. He didn't sit
48 minutes, right?
Yeah, 48 minutes. He played the whole game each time.
I think he sat for a few minutes in the past couple, just not last night.
The last 2 games he played 48 minutes straight.
I do not think that's true.
Can you check that?
I think last night he did.
He definitely played 48 last night.
Regardless, he played the whole game.
Yes.
That is, yes.
And he's going to have the all-time playoff minute record by his next season, I think. And I think his the minutes he plays are the most crucial minutes of a basketball game, especially when you play all 48.
Yeah, Well, if you're playing the whole time, you're obviously important to your team. But
Right.
I remember I was talking to, I think, Zeke and Jack about this last time. I was saying that Jeff Green is actually a very good player. He just didn't have time to get his consistency. And I was saying they should get him more minutes, because when he was on the court, he was playing well. His shooting needs to get better, but that does come with having consistent minutes. And if you don't get those consistent minutes, then you're not going to shoot as well.
I think Green has gotten enough minutes, and his consistency still hasn't come, and it probably won't. He'll have a game like once in every 10 games maybe where he'll remember that he's Jeff Green and score 20-plus points, and it's awesome. But then the next game, he's back to horrible efficiency, not getting into his rhythm, and you can't really rely on him, I think.
I think, though, you also have to put into consideration his defensive help. The Cavs needed that.
And they had a really good defensive game. I think shutting down Terry Rozier was so important. And their defense was really good, but they had a lot of clutch offensive players who hadn't showed up the rest of the series. Kyle Korver hit some really clutch shots last night.
Yeah.
Some really clutch shots. A fall away that no one saw going in, and then a wide open three the next time down the floor. You'd think they'd put more eyes on him, but they didn't, because you have to focus on LeBron James. And Kyle Korver is the perfect LeBron James teammate. If you haven't noticed, Kyle Korver's efficiency after getting put on LeBron's team is so much better. And I think J.R. Smith hit a bunch of clutch threes, and he was efficient last night for the first time all series.
That's right.
And I think his team finally showed up for him in a game that really mattered. And I think they can continue showing up. I don't think they can beat either the Rockets or the Warriors, but I definitely think they will be showing up more and more in the coming series.
I think if the Rockets make it out, there is a chance that the Cavaliers could beat them, potentially, because Chris Paul is out. And that's going to be a very big difference for their team, because if you look at how the Rockets were playing, Chris Paul is what kept them alive in a lot of those games. So without him, it is possible that the Cavaliers beat the Rockets. But just looking at how LeBron James played, man, he was getting so many 40-point games. He had almost averaged a triple-double every game. He almost had a triple-double every game. That's kind of ridiculous. And I'm not one who's the triple doubles what matters and everything, but just the way he was playing the game, he was forcing his teammates to help in other aspects. He was giving them the ball, he was giving them a little bit more responsibility, and to me that's a knock on LeBron for a lot of other times where he doesn't trust his teammates. Now his teammates may not be trustworthy right now, but him playing off the ball is what helped him score more points, and that's what they needed. And it's wow, this is what LeBron James can do. So I was very impressed watching these games.
Yeah, when his team steps up, it's great, because LeBron scored 35 points last night. That's not a top 7 performance for him in these playoffs alone.
Mm-hmm.
He's had to carry so many games where his team was just not showing up. 538 recently put out an analytical report where they determined that this Cavs team is the worst supporting cast LeBron has ever taken to the finals, and that's over the 07 cast.
And that was a really bad team. They won less games than this current Cavs team, I believe. And this Cavs team is still worse. LeBron had one of his best statistical seasons overall this year, and he played 82 games for the first time in his entire career. And you have to think the wear and tear on this man's body is insane, all because the only reason he's doing this is because of the haters and the doubters. And you have to think he carried the team. He's won 3 titles now. He's going to be a billionaire by the time his career is over. What else does he have to win for?
Well, more rings would be nice.
Yeah,
more rings would be nice, but you're still one of the greatest statistical basketball players of all time. And those 3 titles, those were amazing. Those were amazing seasons overall. And beating that Warriors team was one of the biggest triumphs of his career. And if I think he can beat this Warriors team or any other Warriors team in the future, he will have beaten the best team ever. I think these Warriors teams are no one can stop these teams. The Rockets are only getting close because Steph Curry just got off injury. And I think...
No, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, it is.
If you watch the game, the way that the Rockets... Okay, so the Warriors system is a lot of pick-and-roll basketball. And the Rockets are so good at playing defense off of their off the pick and roll basketball, and they'll dish it out to somebody else. But the Rockets are actually doing what the Warriors don't want them to do. They'll stay because they're so good at making the switch. They'll stay on the guy who's open on the outside, and so it's taking away a lot of their offense. It's not just because it's not because Steph Curry's hurt. It's because the Rockets have been playing premier defense against this Warriors team, and that's something that the Warriors are not used to. They're used to everyone just falling into their trap. But because of how the Rockets play defense and their speed, because their speed can somewhat match the Warriors' speed, which is not something a lot of teams can do, and the switches they're making, I always thought, even in the beginning of the season, everyone was saying, I don't think the Rockets' defense can match the Warriors' offense, and I was saying, I don't know, because if you watch them play, it looks like they can. And clearly, as the series went on, they could. And Clint Capella has been doing a very good job for most of the games guarding Kevin Durant when he's had to. So, yes, I understand what you're saying about this Warriors team, but they can be stopped. And it's evident that they can be stopped because the Rockets seemed like they were going to be the one to stop them if Chris Paul stayed healthy.
I think if Steph Curry hadn't been on injury when they got into the series, if he hadn't been injured, there's no way the Rockets stood a singular chance. Not even a % of a chance. There was no way the Rockets won the series if Steph Curry was never injured.
Curry had been back for 4 games at that point, and he had already been putting up classic Curry stat line. So I don't think it's playing as much of a role as you're saying it is.
But the series before, he was guarded by Rajon Rondo and Drew Holiday. And Drew Holiday had, one good defensive game against him, and then after that they couldn't stop him because Steph is Steph, but now he's playing against a good defensive point guard.
But why was there no excuse then?
There was no excuse then because Kevin Durant was still on this rampage from the first series, and he was dropping however many points a game, and Steph didn't have to be good. But against a team as good as the Rockets, Steph does have to be good. And I think if he hadn't been injured at the start of the playoffs, he would be in a better rhythm, and there's no way the Rockets.
But you just said that the Warriors would have the Rockets would have no chance in the Warriors.
If Steph had been in his rhythm,
but you were just saying that in comparison, they're not a good team.
No, I'm not saying they're not a good team. They're a good team. No team in the NBA is on the same tier as the Warriors. Not a singular team.
Clearly, the Rockets can be that team because of how they played. Honestly, Steph Curry, regardless of what you're saying, any player who's saying that he's hurt and playing injured and everything, he's not giving himself any excuses. And if he's not giving himself any excuses, I'm not giving him any excuses.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just if he's out on the court, it's he's a great player. He's an all-time great. You know what I mean? All those all-time greats, if they're out on the floor, they don't want any excuses. Because if they're out there, that means that they can play at their top level. That means that they're going to, regardless if they're injured, they're going to play through the pain. It's like when you look at, if you go back to Michael Jordan's Michael Jordan's flu game. It's he was very sick, but he still played great basketball. And it's I know it's a different type of thing, but if you're out there and you're an all-time great, you are saying, I am fine. I'm going to play at the level that I play at. And with that being said, I think this Rockets team showed that they can compete with the Warriors.
Yeah, I'm thinking with regards to Steph's injury, if you want to say his injury is affecting his play, I don't think that's the case. What if maybe he's just not having good games? He scored 18 and 16 points in the first 2 games. Maybe that wasn't his injury. Maybe he just didn't have a good game.
He has done that in the past too. When he was younger, his playoff game wasn't always as good as it has been in recent years. But that's what comes with aging and getting better as a player and having a better supporting cast and all that stuff. But I think this Rockets team is a lot better than what we give them credit for. And I do think, with that being said, I do think there are teams like the Bulls, the old Bulls, that had those 2 3-peats that could potentially play against this Warriors team. Because if the Rockets can, then I'm pretty sure a 72-win team from that Bulls team could probably give them. I think that they could win. I think it goes either or. And
give them a good series.
Yeah, it'll be a great series.
But I think
even with Kevin Durant,
those two teams are the top two teams in NBA history.
Yeah.
The 73-9 team is good, but they're a better team now than they were then. They just got on a really good hot streak that season, like multiple of them. And I think if they play a full season with this team, they could beat that record even. Like, they went 73-9. Wow, that'd be insane. 73-9, and that's the best run of an NBA team ever. They could do better if they spend a full season without anyone getting injured. And if their bench improves just a tiny bit, they're a better team than they were when they lost to that Cavs team.
I think in theory they could beat the 73-win record because they have two of the top 4 players in the NBA
Two
right
MVPs.
now, maybe 2 of the top 3. But I don't think realistically it'll ever happen because even despite the injuries, they probably could have beat that record this season, but they know they don't have to try that much. I know they're still NBA players and they're going to try to win, but they got the 2 seed with a lot of time missed to injury and a lot of games just playing badly. So I don't think they would ever turn it on enough to actually beat the 73-win record, even though they might be able to. They just wouldn't have to.
I also think that 73-win team had better ball movement than this Warriors team.
Well, yeah, because now Kevin Durant's here. It adds an iso ball element to this team
Yeah.
that really wasn't there before because I get it, Steph did it, but now you have 2 iso ball elements. Maybe you added another iso ball element. Steph played iso ball, but that's after Klay Thompson already had 20 points all of a sudden, and Draymond Green was getting buckets out of nowhere, and Andre Iguodala was killer. Like the team then was really good, and the iso element I think screwed them up in the beginning. I think they're a better overall team now than the 73-win team.
Yeah, because
and I think it's really close between the 72-10 and this team now. And I think they're the 2 best teams in NBA history by far. Like there's a few teams that may come close, like the Lakers team that beat the Kings that one year.
Yeah,
I think
but there's
that's
a reason
really
why
good
these
team.
teams seem
Right.
unstoppable. Yeah, I
Because they
understand.
are.
But they seem that way. But if the Rockets if Chris Paul didn't get hurt, the Rockets would probably have beaten the Warriors.
I don't want to say probably. I'll say possibly. I'll give you that.
There's a possibility. It's not like if Chris Paul didn't get hurt, the series is over. I thought it would have been a really good game down to the last 5 minutes. Like, not even like the last 3 minutes, and all of a sudden it's back and forth basketball until someone's ahead by 5.
But even at that, last year's Cavaliers team was not even this good as that Rockets team.
Oh,
Is this
yeah.
Rockets team.
The Cavs team last year was garbage. The Cavs team this year is
look at how
garbage.
they played the
and
Warriors.
Garbage teams in the finals. Hey, guys.
No, I mean, they're
he
not
is.
garbage.
They're not the best team in the East,
No, but
and I
that's when
don't think they
but-
should be
no,
in the
but I'm saying
finals.
that's even when they had Kyrie. Looking at that, like that means this Rockets team is that good.
Right, but the Rockets team is that good because they're playing under Mike D'Antoni. They added an a top 20 player of all time over this previous offseason. Clint Capella got progressively better, and I think I'm not going to say it's a fluke. I'm not going to say it's a fluke. I'm going to say it's a really good season starting out, but I don't think they're going to age well, and I think this is going to be their best season so far. This is going to be their best season as this team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the Warriors will beat them tonight, and they would have beaten them with Chris Paul because Klay Thompson in Game 6 and 7 is a whole different monster that you don't want to get into. He's probably one of the best Game 6 and 7 players ever. And you've seen LeBron James playing a lot of Game 6 and 7s where he's really good.
What about Kobe in Game 7?
But have you seen Klay Thompson in these games?
Klay
Last year when they were
Thompson
down
is a very good
3-2
player,
to the Thunder, he turned it on and he dropped 40 points was it in that game? Some like 35 to 40 points out of nowhere in like the second half. He just went off.
Klay Thompson is great, but it also helps to have Steph Curry, Draymond, and KD.
Oh yeah, they're distractions on the floor.
Next to you, because
They're distractions on
that
the
helps
floor.
his game because he does sometimes play like a Kyle Korver, like a spot up shooter.
Oh, yeah,
but he does have moves, but he's just way better than Kyle Korver.
I think
He's like the ultimate Kyle Korver, one that could dribble the basketball.
Super Saiyan Kyle Korver.
Yeah.
Just like
But I just yeah. Part of me is just when you look at this team, I do think the Warriors obviously they have it in the bag, but I don't think that I don't want to discredit this Rocket team, but looking at them going forward, that their team is probably going to crumble next season because a lot of their players are unrestricted free agents and they are older. This is why I'm kind of sad about this team because they could have beat this Warriors team that seemed unstoppable. And that's something That's something that shouldn't have happened. This Warrior team should go 4-0 every series. But this Rockets team showed that they're very different than what we thought they were.
And the other team that could have stopped the Warriors because of the way they play would have been the Pelicans if they had both bigs. Like, don't get me wrong, they were still really good with Anthony Davis, but with both bigs, who's going to stop them? The Warriors play the wrong style of basketball to meet up with the Pelicans again in the playoffs. If the Pelicans keep DeMarcus Cousins, they can beat the Warriors, and they will give them a great series.
I could see how you could say that, but even looking at the regular season, the two bigs is a problem because, like, they did have a lot of problems when they had DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis on the floor. So that's why I'm not so sure about that, because looking at the regular season, when even the best basketball isn't even played, they did have a lot of problems because it is hard distributing the player who basically does the same exact thing, the ball. And it's when it's down low. It's
Right.
different when it's up top and there's more room to work around. But when you're down low, there's only so much room. And they can score outside, but that's not their forte.
I think they're two of the best ball handling bigs in the league. And this is gonna be my closing statement on this for me, and then Jack's gonna finish this one off. I think you give them the whole season, a real whole season together where someone doesn't get injured. They're going to create the chemistry on the floor. They're going to be able to dish to each other. If you see the way Davis will work down in the post, and then he'll go up for something and just give it off. Like they're willing to sacrifice touches because they work well together. And I think they like each other, and I think if they keep Rajon Rondo, it makes that team's chemistry a lot better. And I think they're just going to be a good overall team, and they're one of the two teams that can stop the Warriors.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just had two quick things before we wrap it up. Just a fact check about LeBron's minutes, because we were talking about that earlier. In Game 7, he did play all 48. Game 6, 46 minutes, and Game 5, 39. Not taking anything away from him. He's probably going to have to play more than that in the finals. Just wanted to get that out there. And before we wrap it up, I just wanted to ask, if the Warriors win, Brandon, how many games do you have them winning in?
In the finals?
Yeah.
5.
I agree.
4.
Really? What about if the Rockets win?
If the Rockets win, it'd be a 6-game series.
6. Yep, that's what I would say, 6.
But
Sounds
Rockets
good.
in 6. I don't think the Cavs have a chance at winning this finals.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think I needed to say Rockets or Warriors in that situation. It's like, I feel like that's just how you know. Also, just right before we call this one quits, I do think on the Pelicans, Frank Jackson, he's a rookie that they drafted this season, is going to be a very good player going next season, and he's probably going to help them in with the scoring load, for especially like a shooting presence that they definitely need going forward, because I do like Rondo, but I wouldn't be lying if it's not. I mean, it might be possible, but if the Pelicans could somehow get Chris Paul, definitely would be better for that team.
Ooh.
But that'll be it for today. Thank you for listening to the Unbearables podcast. I'm Brandon Ruiz, and I'm here with
Phil Wood.
And Jack Cowart.
Thank you for listening.